how anyone who is a Trump supporter can listen to that and not feel completely condescended to and devalued and ignored is something I'll never understand. It wasn't the media obsessing on the Epstein case. It was Donald Trump's closest political associates.
Yes. Okay, I'm here with Nick Bryant, expert in child trafficking and Epstein, among other things. And Kurt Metzger is here, Americans Comedian, who is my favorite conspiracy theorist who goes down the rabbit holes. And I want to get your...
Just read books.
That's right. It's all out there. I just wanted to show you this. So Trump was asked about the Epstein files right in front of Pam Bondi. And let's just play it for you. Here it goes.
Sure. Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure.
So now this has been the biggest story in right-wing media, at least for the last 5 years. It's been a huge story. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi. Everybody's been screaming about this Epstein thing, and they promised they're going to give you the files. It's the biggest story ever. And here's what Trump has to say about this. And by the way, it was already, like we've mentioned in our last segment, the guy who Alex Costa, who was prosecuted, the only guy prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach. He was asked why he gave Jeffrey Epstein such a sweetheart deal, and he said, because I was told that Jeffrey Epstein worked for the intelligence agencies in the United States, and this was above my pay grade. That's why I had to give him that sweetheart deal. And so here's Trump's response to this question.
Ma'am, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things.
Don't you know that talking about something for years means that you should stop talking about it? Like people who want to bring an end to war. They've been doing that for years. Just look at the world. The more you talk about Jeffrey Epstein, the closer you're getting to photos of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, I guess. So that's why you shouldn't talk about it anymore. Anyway, he's got more to say.
Well, also the whole government.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this.
He can't believe it. Trump cannot believe it that you're asking a question. Isn't this
about Epstein?
About really the thing that you and everybody in your administration has been screaming about until they got into your administration, and then they all were like, nothing to see here.
I'm just worried about Iran myself. I don't even think about it, Jimmy.
Here is Trump. So he's big mad. So according to Power to the People, he says that, yes, that Trump is mad, and he's definitely on the Epstein list along with Bill Clinton. And yes, we're still talking about Epstein because none of the child rapists have been held accountable. And what this implies is that a child sex trafficking ring is being used to blackmail the most powerful people in the world, including in our country, including right now the Trump administration. So that's why they're being controlled. That's why we should still talk about it. That's why it's super important, because we already know AIPAC has that unbelievable influence and control of our Congress and Donald Trump's administration, and that Jeffrey Epstein was working for them. And so that's why this is super important, because this will keep going. Here's what Glenn Greenwald had to say about it.
How anyone who is a Trump supporter can listen to that and not feel completely condescended to and devalued and ignored is something I'll never understand. It wasn't the media obsessing on the Epstein case. It was Donald Trump's closest political associates.
Yes.
In fact, J.D. Vance bashed the media repeatedly for not asking questions about the Epstein case. He said anyone who's a journalist worthy of that term would be digging into all of this and demanding answers from the Biden administration about why these documents aren't forthcoming, about what information there is, about who's on that client list. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino went on every podcast they could find, including in Dan Bongino's case, his own, to talk about this repeatedly. We showed you all the video last night. By the way, I was on Breaking Points earlier today with Crystal Ball, and I'm sure every show did this, but they compiled their own video montage of huge numbers of Trump officials, Trump supporters, leading Trump influencers over the last 4 years, banging the table in an accusatory way, implying that the Biden administration is in on this predatory pedophile plot because they're hiding all the truth. And then Trump, when asked about it, a matter that his own movement, his own supporters, that Trump himself was asked about several times during the campaign, and said, yeah, I think that's something that probably should be disclosed. I'm going to look into this. Then has the audacity to say, how can you ask about something so trivial? We're dealing with important things like the flood in Texas and this great war victory, this 12-day war, this glorious war victory, this triumph that we bombed for about 30 minutes, Iran's nuclear facilities. And Netanyahu's here, and the two war leaders are expecting this parade in gratitude for this historic victory that they ended up waging. And Trump is saying, all these great things we're doing and all these tragedies, you're going to talk about something as trivial as the Epstein case? This creep that's dead? I mean, all the people raising the questions most loudly still are Trump's own supporters. His vice president, his attorney general, his FBI director, his deputy FBI director, his own attorney, personal attorney, who's now the U.S. attorney for New Jersey. And he's going to attack a reporter and demean a reporter. And that's as angry as Trump really gets in terms of like his visceral behavior. I said, he exploded in anger at this reporter, and a lot of Trump reporters said, no, it wasn't exploding in anger. Whatever. That's a semantic thing. For me, I haven't seen Trump quite that animated in spewing anger toward a reporter, but whatever. The substance is what matters, and the substance is him suddenly now pronouncing that the Epstein case is not just trivial, but too trivial to even waste his time asking about. Now that his administration has said, nothing there, nothing to see, move on.
So Glenn follows up by saying any attempt to heap all the blame on Pam Bondi for the blatant BS with the Epstein files, rather than admitting this was done by Trump as well, should end with this video. Trump is mocking the idea that any of this even matters, demanding everyone move on immediately. And here's Donald Trump before.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would.
Release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Will you work?
So he flew Rogan out a couple weeks ago, Joe told me, to talk about vaccines with him. And then he called RFK up on the phone. You don't think they already talked about vaccines? Why'd they bring you out before the big, beautiful bill? They flew Thiel somewhere too, I found out. So that's a charm offensive before the big, beautiful bill, which passed. So it's done now. So now they can tell you to go fuck yourself with their, what are you going to do about it, stupid? Nothing. That's what.
So here's more people making a big deal out of it, even though Trump said it's no big deal. So not only is Vice President right there making a big deal out of it with Theo Vaughn, here we go.
With me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings.
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past and how we are going to countermand missing children and exploited children going forward.
Just last week, the president's excellent pick for FBI Director Kash Patel vowed to work with me in releasing the Epstein records and breaking apart the trafficking rings that harm countless women and children across our country.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
All this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah.
So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me and himself, really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. It's a new administration, and everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
I know the Attorney General has committed to releasing those files. I would defer you to the Department of Justice on her timeline, but when she has made a promise in the past, she has kept it, and I'm certain that she will in this case as well.
Welcome back, everybody. 20 minutes to the top of the hour. Case closed. The Justice Department revealing Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide and insists there is no secret client list out there.
So, one more quick thing. Here is Max Blumenthal says, had the Democrats done Trump Epstein instead of Trump Russia, the Trump Russia hoax, they might be in power right now. Trump Epstein was the gut shot that the Democrats never took. And they couldn't, because Epstein had them on the books as well. That's why the Democrats couldn't play the Epstein angle, because Epstein had compromat and blackmail on the Democrats too. And that's why the Democrats had to invent something called Russiagate, which is a complete invention, a hoax. And it was always Israel. Israel was a foreign country controlling Trump. It wasn't Russia, but that didn't fulfill their narrative, because they wanted a war with Russia, because they always thought they could split it up and balkanize it and sell it off to BlackRock. That's what they always thought. That's
also Hollywood, Jimmy. They own most of Epstein had most of the big celebrities too that said you're a conspiracy theorist if you talked about it.
And here's
I think that Diddy had a number of celebrities and sports stars.
Mm-hmm.
And celebrities have a lot of power in the society that we live in. With one tweet, they can change the attitude of millions of people.
Yeah.
One thing that people don't understand about Epstein is Epstein, yes, was a blackmailer. All his homes were equipped with cameras. But Epstein was a college dropout from Coney Island. His father worked for the New York City as a gardener. There's no way that Jeffrey Epstein by himself could blackmail the most powerful men in the world. He had to have had an organization behind him. And that organization would tell these guys that have been blackmailed, you cannot touch a hair on Jeffrey Epstein's head, or else there'll be retribution. That's the only way a college dropout from Coney Island, from a blue-collar family, can blackmail some of the most powerful men in the country, or in the world, I should say.
Also, my understanding is Ghislaine was the one in charge, not him. Her dad was Robert Maxwell. He was there to protect her. And I've heard victims say that. Do you know anything about that?
Ghislaine built the machine. And that machine was a great white shark. It was able to get kids, and these predators, these super predators, their ingenuity to get kids is kind of mind-boggling. And then they get kids to get other kids, and then they get those kids. It almost works out to be like a Ponzi scheme for kids. Yeah. And the thing that I want to emphasize is I got the Black Book in 2012, and Alfredo Rodriguez was the house manager who purloined the Black Book. And he circled guys that he felt were in cahoots with Epstein. And that's, the Black Book is like a grail, especially the circled names. And we can get corroboration from Virginia Giuffre, one of the victims. She killed herself about a month and a half ago. But like, for example, Ghislaine Maxwell is circled in the Black Book, and Virginia Giuffre named her as a perpetrator. Les Wexner is circled in the Black Book, and Virginia Giuffre named him as a perpetrator. Bill Richardson, the former governor of New Mexico, and also Clinton's energy czar, his name is circled in the Black Book, and Virginia Giuffre named him as a perpetrator. Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, his name is circled in the Black Book, and Virginia Giuffre said that he molested her very violently. Alan Dershowitz is circled in the Black Book, and Virginia Giuffre said that she had to have a number of encounters with Alan Dershowitz when she was a minor. And Jean-Luc Brunel, he ran a modeling agency with Epstein called MC Squared. His name is circled, and Virginia Giuffre said that he was molested by her multiple times. So we can get corroboration as far as these perpetrators.
Abercrombie and Fitch, Leslie Wexner company. I don't know what the guy's name is. He ran the branch of the gay branch, I guess.
Well, the media has been so disingenuous covering this story. And Vanity Fair, and this gets kind of mind-boggling. Well, Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his entire empire. He gave him the keys. And whatever Jeffrey Epstein wanted to do with Les Wexner's billions, he could do. He had power of attorney. Vanity Fair, and I can't believe it, because Vanity Fair is a somewhat sophisticated magazine. Vanity Fair said the reason why Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his empire was because he was lonely.
I remember that. That was on the Netflix documentary. They implied a gay relationship and he got hustled.
I mean, how crazy is that? And Leon Black, who is also, Jeffrey Epstein pimped little girls to Leon Black, too. He was head of Apollo. He's a billionaire. And the reason why Leon, this is the mainstream media, and this is actually reported by various outlets. They said the reason why Leon Black gave Jeffrey Epstein $160 million is because Jeffrey Epstein was helping him with his taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy probably has 2 or 3 floors of accountants, so he doesn't have to pay an extra penny in taxes.
No.
But he gives Jeffrey Epstein $160 million to
Guy
help
can't spell his own name.
So
I mean, that's our media. That's how our media is with this story.
Do you think, Nick? Just one question. Do you think that the picture of him with his name spelled wrong? Do you think Epstein's even his real name? Like Netanyahu's had 3 name changes, so why not Jeffrey?
There's a lot of speculation about Jeffrey Epstein and his family, but I haven't been really able to nail anything down that's solid about that.
Right.
I acquired some pictures of him at Interlochen Art Camp when he was 16. And he would ultimately go on to molest some kids at Interlochen Art Camp. It's in Michigan. It's in northern Michigan. And there was actually a Jeffrey Epstein Lodge at Interlochen. And needless to say, there's no longer a Jeffrey Epstein Lodge at Interlochen. And this has been going on for 2.5 decades. Jeffrey Epstein trafficked these girls for 25 years. And, the thing about it is, as I said earlier, if Michael Ryder, the chief of the Palm Beach Police Department, if he wasn't a stand-up guy, I mean, he took a lot of heat and he got threatened. He had strange phone calls, but the dude would not back down. If it hadn't been for Michael Ryder, we wouldn't even know the name Jeffrey Epstein. He'd be trafficking girls right now as we're talking.
So here's a kind of a funny twist. Here's what Tucker Carlson has to say to Jeffrey Epstein. Ready?
I'll speak for myself. I never thought that I would be offering an apology to Jeffrey Epstein. I think of all the times I've maligned that guy, all the times I'm accused him of crimes, of blackmailing people, of trafficking children to powerful figures around the world on behalf of global intel services. And then I learned yesterday from Attorney General Pam Bondi that's totally untrue.
Yes, yeah.
The guy killed himself after 36 days in prison for no reason. He was a billionaire. He had no clients. He'd done nothing wrong other than get naughty massages 20 years before. And the guy killed himself, another pointless death. And then his best friend, former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, doing 20 years in prison for no crime. There are no victims.
Yes, it's a victimless crime. They're obviously persecuted by the state.
Yes.
They're political prisoners, really. It's The Hague should come in and do an investigation, or we're watching one of the most systematic government cover-ups of all time.
Since the last one and the one before that, the one before that.
Yeah.
It's always the biggest. There's a bunch of, go look 30 years in history. They do this all the time. It's not new.
But at least Epstein's not alive anymore, right, Tucker? I mean, and even though his bank account is still active, right? Do you know about that, Nick?
Yes, his bank account is still active. He made some good investments with Peter Thiel.
Ha ha ha! Really?
Wow.
Yep.
So how
Peter Thiel and Epstein did a little business together.
So
good
how
old Peter Thiel.
So
he gives great lectures on the Book of Revelation, I understand.
Peter is. I don't really want to get into my thoughts on him but it's unfortunate that he sued Gawker into oblivion, because Gawker was one of the few outlets that would pay me for my stories on Jeffrey Epstein. Gawker was the only media that was willing to publish the Black Book. And I tried to get the Black Book published for 3 years, and Gawker was the only one that was willing to do that. And then once the Black Book was published, then the floodgates opened on it, and people wrote article after article, but only 2 outlets acknowledged me as ushering the Black Book onto the internet. But when we're talking about change in our system, I started an organization called Epstein Justice, and I would hope that your listeners and audience go to EpsteinJustice.com. And what we're doing is we're seeking a Truth and Reconciliation Commission from the Congress, an independent investigation. And what we want is we want an independent investigation by the Congress of Jeffrey Epstein. And what we have to do is we have to put a lot of pressure on our representatives and on our senators to make that happen, because we're going to need a majority in the House, we're going to need a majority in the Senate. But I think Epstein Justice, we can get enough Americans that are so outraged right now that all they have to do is go to Epstein Justice, and we put on webinars every month on how you can pressure your federal congressmen and women to do the right thing as far as Epstein Justice. And that's what we have to do, because the government, there's been 2 Democratic administrations, 2 Republican administrations that have covered this up. Regardless if they're Democrats or Republicans, they're going to cover it up. It's really up to Americans at this point to say, that's it, we're done. There's a line in the sand, and this has to be investigated. Presidential commissions have not done well. The Warren Commission wasn't very good. The 9/11 Commission wasn't very good. But congressional commissions have got things done. I mean, the church hearings were amazing in the 70s. They outed COINTELPRO. They outed the CIA's chaos. They outed a number of various malfeasance by the CIA as far as toppling dictators and assassinating people. So it is possible. And I believe now we have the internet, and we can use the internet. The internet has been used for a lot of nefarious things, but we can utilize the internet, and we can build Epstein Justice. And we've got a good team. We've got a good advisory board. As I said, I've spoken at a number of anti-trafficking conferences, and some of the bellwethers in the anti-trafficking world are on our advisory board. And it's really up to us whether we're going to take this or not. Are we going to just sit down and let the government cover up this huge child molestation network? And there's been other child molestation networks that have been covered up by the government, because I wrote a book about one of them. Are we going to do something about it? Or are we just going to let our government become a bigger sewer than it already is? I think it's up to us. We can do it. We, the people, can make this change. I really believe that.
And your website is EpsteinJustice.com, is that it?
EpsteinJustice.com, yeah.
Wait, so you're saying I should blackmail congressmen?
So let me ask you.
They only respond to one thing.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Oxnard, California, Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.